Breakdowns and downtime are never good at any point in the year. Probably the most brutal time of year to deal with one of your trucks being stuck on the side of the road is in the heat of summer, and I imagine in particular it's rough on your drivers as well. So, what are some of the tips and tricks for keeping your trucks rolling during the hottest part of the year? Well, honestly, I can't tell you. But fortunately, today I'm joined by Mike Hagaman, Senior Manager, Client Relationship Management at FleetNet America by Cox Automotive. With more than 31 years of experience, Mike has the answers. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate you having me today.
Well, not to keep you too long, but I just had a couple of questions, and, among those answers, we'll get through some of your tips if that sounds good.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Well, first up, what are the key challenges specific to maintaining vehicles during the summer months, and how can a fleet address them?
Well, some of the key challenges, obviously, just with pre-trip and post-trip inspections, is time. Seems like every fleet that we deal with now is really pushed for time on the things to inspect units to make sure they're not going to have a problem in doing basic preventive maintenance. I know we hear that a lot, but it's still the case here because you get into these situations with heat on the side of the road, and I find more than anything, Wayne, now it takes a lot of coordination between your operations team, dispatch type folks, and maintenance to make sure that we're getting these vehicles checked out properly before they hit the road.
It sounds like it takes a team process. How about, can you describe the top preventive maintenance tasks that are crucial for fleet vehicles during the summer to ensure optimal performance and longevity?
Absolutely. We would, I'll give a few out here and then get a little more specific, but tires, belts, and hoses. So many things that we get into with just basic yard checks for air pressure on tires, and the things that we get into for underinflated tires. Obviously, rule of thumb, never let air out of a hot tire, for example, when you're checking things out. But checking air pressure and making sure that the tires are in good shape. Batteries are huge now, Wayne. Such under the hood heat that we're dealing with vehicles. In a lighter duty situation, you still have a lot of the batteries under the hood. Large trucks on the tractor trailer side, they're not, but the heat displays such an effect on the batteries. Most of the fleets I deal with a lot of times aren't aware that hot weather is actually more damaging and detrimental to the batteries than cold. So making sure that they're properly load testing their batteries and getting the proper amperage output from the batteries, because as you know, that taxes alternators too, and so many electronics on these trucks now, it's just critical that we've got the right voltage. So I think tires is the obvious that everyone sees. Cooling system out there with making sure that belts and hoses are properly inspected. From that perspective, the cooling systems, they're from a tip side of it, Wayne. I think it's pretty elementary, but I remind a lot of fleets now that we have so much under the hood temperature that it's very critical to make sure that we're routinely taking a look at the radiators and making sure that they're free of debris and bugs and things, especially running here in the South. That's even very important for air conditioner condensers, and getting into that with transmission coolers with automatic transmissions. So I know I've hit several things on there. Were there any other questions that you had on that before we move into some other things?
Well, I want to back up to the tire issue. And, while batteries, cooling, and the different systems really fall under maintenance duties, checking the tire at the start of the day, is that really more incumbent to be the responsibility of the driver? And how do you influence drivers to check their tires every day?
Absolutely, that's of the driver. I mentioned pre-trip and post-trip because it's just as important to make sure if you bring that unit in at the end of your shift and you see a tire problem, we can correct it before the driver in front before you. But there are a lot of incentive programs that folks are doing out there for their drivers. Rewarding them if they are finding things or reporting things from a preventive maintenance. A lot of creativity done out there to make sure that those drivers are properly checking those. And I've seen some fleets get creative on that, on tagging some things out there to see if the driver does notice it, to make sure that ensure they are doing their pre-trips. So a lot of things, because that really relies on the driver, and in the hot weather too, reminding the drivers that we don't want them to be delayed. We don't want them to be in a situation that they're out there in a hot vehicle potentially broken down. So they have to get creative on that in this day and age for sure, Wayne.
We mentioned being stuck out there and broke down, and we ran through some of the tips, but what are probably the most common breakdowns or maintenance issues that occur in the summer?
Well, in the summer, as I mentioned, tires would always be number one on that. A cooling system, losing belts, losing, hoses, those type things are among the most common. From the air conditioner, we get a lot of calls for AC work, obviously, and the temperatures that we're dealing with here. And we really encourage customers to do everything they can to step up their routine inspections of their air conditioners a little bit more than have drivers put it in their pre-trip. Turn your air conditioner on, check on it, make sure all your controls are working properly before you leave out. Because ACs are more of a difficult thing to work on the road, because you're in an emergency situation. You really need to get that into a shop where we can properly check for leaks and things like that. So not impossibility to work on the road, but it's a more difficult, and a lot of times it's not a quick repair as well. And an interesting one that I like to put out there for the customers that often gets overlooked, Wayne, is windshield wipers. You get 100-degree temperatures for 10 days and almost drought conditions. No one thinks about the condition of their wiper refills until a huge storm finally does come and they've got an issue, or maybe even a wiper motor that's not running properly. So on the pre-trips, that and actually their washer reservoir fluid, a lot of those things can turn into an emergency breakdown type situation, and they're very preventable. So that's an area I think that folks don't think about very often with the wipers, especially if it hadn't rained in 10 days, for example.
And one thing about the wiper, that makes me think of a FMCSA term, visibility.
Yes,
I think
sir.
without the good wipers, it's really a safety issue also, potentially.
Certainly. In the situations that we're in, it's the age-old $100,000 piece of equipment that $15 worth of parts is delaying our day. And you especially think of that in wiper motors with large trucks. If you get something odd that we can't find, so from that situation. But there's a good one to keep in mind with inspecting the wipers and the visibility for sure.
What about it as we look through all these issues and challenges? What role does technology play in enhancing summer fleet maintenance practices? Is it about telematics? Is it about predictive maintenance? What's the role of technology?
Yeah, technology is just, it's real exciting to watch that, because we're getting more and more predictive maintenance from the telematics that are on these units for sure. One that I like to think about, some of the road tractor fleets that we're into with those guys where we can monitor like voltage output on alternators. That's a huge one when you get an opportunity to contact a driver and let them know that the unit does have a problem going on before they have a breakdown. That's very exciting things. And from that standpoint too, I really encourage the fleets on their practices to look at trade cycles. Going back to COVID, you had some folks that started keeping their trucks a little longer than they normally did, as till availability got back up on builds with the different OEMs. So that's another thing that we encourage folks, if they're going to start going longer than say 4 years, to not only technology but just think about time. About how what's the age of your fleet, and have you done anything to change how your trade cycle, for example? Because now if you're going to keep your truck 6 years instead of 4, there's things like that the technology can help you even more now to monitor what's going on with the truck.
Well, I think of one of the simplest forms of technology, and take it back to one of your first tips, TPMS on your tires. What does the driver watch for? Is it an increase or drop in pressure? Is it increase in heat? If a driver were to be equipped with TPMS and be watching, what numbers would be the indicator to get off the road immediately versus to try to make it through to the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's obviously going to be, with the certain temperatures of what size truck are we dealing with and what's the normal tire pressure that they run in that particular vehicle. And those are a little bit tough questions from a safety standpoint to answer because we don't know exactly what that particular truck's loaded with today, how heavy they are. So sometimes I think a good rule of thumb is if you're more than say 10 to 15% max lower than the normal suggested air pressure for what you're driving, you need to get in somewhere, especially if you're running with a load on that unit, because as you know, when you start at lower air pressures, you've got more heat, and that heat's going to accelerate the time that it's going to be less time before you have a blowout. Those type of things going on, and then the safety related things there too. But you're exactly right. The tire pressure sensors do a great job of letting you know that you've got a tire down on air. I've personally had quite a few of those that I didn't even realize I had a nail in a tire till I jumped in and realized my own personal vehicle. So from a technology standpoint, that's been one of the biggest things in the auto inflation systems, up in the Class 8 units. We've seen some big strides with the tractor trailers from that end. It's just from the auto inflation.
Yeah, I've had some experience and talked to people about the ATIS system, and it's incredible how long a tire can stay on the road and remain inflated before it overcomes the system.
Yeah. That is some pretty amazing technology, and just think about in the 30 years I've been involved in there how that has changed. And not to backtrack, but when we talked about batteries, another thing that we're seeing a lot is just battery technology changing from folks moving over to the AGM batteries on the glass mat batteries instead of the old just flooded liquid batteries. We're seeing a lot of improvement in battery life there, especially in diesel applications of any type, because the way those batteries are set up, we've got more plates in the batteries, so you got more surface there for charging and voltage output. But you were looking at a situation too where all the vibration, this slight harmonic vibration that a diesel engine it really just shakes the internals to failure on a lot of those batteries. So the glass mat technology over the years from all the different battery manufacturers has been interesting to watch, because I think about all the under the hood temperatures that we're dealing with, and I'm always impressed with our battery manufacturers out there, and quite frankly our oil manufacturers from all the different OEs, because we're sure putting a lot of heat and stress and strain on what we're putting back in the crankcases on these trucks. So I think they do both of those, and really in the tire world too. I think we've got some of the best tires that we've ever had in the market, but we still have to rely on our own folks out there to make sure they've got air in them.
Well, I guess if you summed it up, the three biggies would be tires, batteries, hoses, and then throwing air conditioning in on top of that and stay on top of those.
Yeah, and I always throw belts in. One more thing, I think anything on the truck like that's rubber. You can have some things like it because you're getting hot and cold, and a lot of things that'll take on any of those rubber components like that. But those are the biggies for heat, absolutely.
Well, hopefully people can keep their fleets prepared and rolling and not stranded on the side with downtime, and drivers that probably wouldn't be very pleasant when they make it back in to the office.
Yeah, well, and that's a situation that you're exactly right with, Wayne. We want to help, with relations inside the fleet. So every fleet, if they're not struggling to keep enough technicians, they're struggling to keep enough drivers and qualified drivers. Over the years, we've had a lot of good feedback from customers that say, hey, we like to partner with folks like ourselves here to help get these drivers off the side of the road. So anything we can do to help make it a better CX, if you will, experience for the driver, we're doing that. And quite frankly, it can be a safety thing. If it's with that kind of heat, I tell them it's not just a wintertime phenomenon. They need to keep drinks and snacks and flares and jumper cables and things like that inside the truck. for hot weather, because it can. I think people can discount real easily how safety can play into a real hot weather situation too.
Yeah, definitely keep them rolling and keep them safe. Well, as hot as it is down south right now, I kind of wish we were talking about winter weather, so maybe we can do that in a couple of months.
Absolutely, we'd love to talk with you more. Those are definitely the hot of the summer and the coldest part of the winter. That's when we actually see more action, if you will, in the emergency world. So anything we can help remind folks out there to prevent that, we sure love to have those discussions.
Technically, I can say today you gave me all the hot tips. Well, thanks, Mike, and I'm sure we'll talk again sometime.